We are 6 weeks away from midterm elections, and the get out to vote efforts are in full effect. Democrats are pushing hard to get black voters who usually sit out the midterm elections to the polls this year. To help discuss the Democrats' efforts and their get out the vote campaigns and how Donald Trump may play a role in all of this is Conscious Lee. Lee is a professor and influencer. He is currently teaching at Wilder University. He is known on social media for his thought-provoking conversation, and he uses those conversations to remind us that education is elevation. Joining us now is Conscious Lee. Thank you for being here.
Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. So, Conscious Lee, let's just jump right into this. I have been following you for a really long time, and so I am it's an honor to have this conversation with you. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Biden, they are making their way around the country to battleground states trying to get Democrats to the polls. They are doing a big push for black voters. Are we key to keeping the Democrats in the Senate with the wins in Georgia, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Florida? What do Democrats need to get black people to the polls?
I think that they have to spend as much funding to get black people to have the same energy that we have about the polls when it comes to national elections as they do in the midterms. I know a lot of times when we think about the national elections, we usually talk about debates, whether the elections work, whether they don't work. Well, I know you care about who run county jail. I know you care about, you feel me, how much, government funding that you get. I know you care about, how great your roads is. I know we should care about how our school funding is, and all those things I just named is literally impacted by midterm elections. So the Democrats are tasked with really trying to make us feel it,
They are. Let's talk a little bit about the governor's race in Georgia. It's Stacey Abrams versus Governor Brian Kemp. It's like part two, because we know back in 2018, Abrams lost by only 50,000 votes. But new polling this time around shows about 6 percentage points. She's running about 6 percentage points behind Kemp. They say she's having a hard time getting independent and some black male voters on her side. Abrams, she has, right now, 87% of black male voters and 94% of black women. Why do you think she's having such a hard time with black men, black male voters?
Man, unpopular opinion. I think during the pandemic, all of the men's rights, all of the, what they call it, the Manosphere, Kevin Samuels, Andrew Tate type content, I will argue that was a literal pipeline for the alt-right, and a lot of our fellow black men kind of got lost in the sauce with spewing a whole bunch of those alt-right conservative points. Whether we talking about being a high-value man or whether we talking about women being submissive, a lot of those understandings of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a strong black man, we see a lot of my counterparts really got swept up in some of that old white supremacist logic. So when you think about uniquely what's going on in Atlanta, in the broader state of Georgia, we know that a lot of the base of the manosphere uniquely is individuals that's in that state, you feel me? So, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I can connect the dots and recognize that a lot of sentiments I heard that was on my TikTok, on my Instagram, on my YouTube, is a lot of values that are in line with conservatism.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that before. But then what's the alternative, though, right? Like, if you don't vote for Stacey Abrams as black woman, are those men then voting for Brian Kemp? Do they really feel like that alt-right opinion, those high-value opinions are going to come from Governor Brian Kemp?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if we being real, if you spend any time just making analysis or just really peeping game what's coming on from those those echo chambers of the manosphere, is really thinking about the ways that conservatism politically, socially, economically align with free thinking and bringing the black family about. So when you think uniquely about how a lot of black men are swinging for power, recognizing that black women have more representation in different spaces, you find that a lot of dudes is like, hey, black women getting something must mean it's taken from me. Therefore, it makes sense for me to vote this particular way because it's more in line with these conservative values,
Wow. I just can't see that. I mean, not saying that that's not what's happening. That just sounds really backwards to me that someone would actually think like that. So wow, okay, that's very interesting. Let's move on. Let's talk about the other race in Georgia. Senator Raphael Warnock going against Herschel Walker. Warnock is doing better with black men and independent voters in the state. Polling shows that Senator Warnock has Senator Warnock has a razor-thin lead over Walker. I just want to know, though, I know you've heard Herschel Walker, you've heard him speak, you know what he stands for. We've seen Senator Raphael Warnock. Why is this race so close?
This race so close because the loyalty of the Republican Party. We know that. To me, I think that a lot of times the black community get trivialized for not having responsibility or accountability and being like, where are you and your homies when they're doing X, Y, and Z? We see that a lot of that come from conservative media's projection. And that one of the reasons why we see Herschel Walker doing so great is because he got endorsed by a Republican. He got endorsed by the great Lord and Savior Donald Trump himself. So when we see, individuals that recognize they're incompetent, that acknowledge they aren't that smart, that acknowledge they can't debate, that acknowledge they can't really do nothing with the constituents, they ride literally on the loyalty of the Trump base and recognizing that it's a lot of people that either A, want to prove their loyalty to the Trump base, or B, don't want to be alienated from the Trump base. And as a result, they're also, adding to the legitimacy of Herschel Walker, even though he's talking about him being incompetent. And the last thing I would say on it, we see how a lot of Republicans play in our face. You feel me? A lot of them still believe that Barack Obama was only voted for because he was black, but they ain't recognized that Herman Cain or, Ben Carson and now, Herschel Walker don't mean that it's because you're a black person we're going to vote for you. So I'm hoping, state of Georgia, please, everybody, you feel me, in Georgia that has hopefully went and made sure that they ain't played with your registration, that y'all go out there and show these Republicans that they can't assault our intelligence, and let Herschel Walker and his son know, stop playing with us politically, socially, economically, talking about that.
I love that. Absolutely. No, those were all really good points. Last year, this time, President Biden's approval ratings, they were sinking. But in the recent weeks, he's been on the rebound. But much of that, I think, is coming from Democrats looking more favorably about what's going on in Capitol Hill. But what issues do you think Democrats must talk about to get black voters to the polls come November?
My granny always said you got to follow through what you said you was going to do when you said you was going to do it. You feel me? So for me, it's thinking about all the sentiments and all the verbiage that was used so poetically after, Kamala said, we did it, Joe, we did it. You feel me? So it's thinking about the uniqueness of black women and how black women, how both of them acknowledge that black women fueled the campaign for them to get in the presidency. It's being able to see some real material policy that's trying to improve the material reality for black women uniquely. And also thinking about all of the things you said about reparations, or all the things you said about police brutality, all the things, that Biden put out a plan. It's now following through more suit, which now you're going to be looking for your reelection, man. So now it's like, what can I go find on your website with this great promise you made to black folks, and seeing which ones you following through on politically, socially, economically? You acknowledge all these disparities in healthcare and education and all this stuff. What you doing?
So true. Show us something that you follow through on all of the things that you've spoken on leading up into these midterm elections, since now you definitely need us once again to show up for you. Absolutely. Well said. So lastly, because we are running out of time, I wanted to ask you, you are so outspoken online covering issues from Ray J to Kanye screaming black injustice to states' rights. How did you get your start in edutainment, Conscious?
Man, I got my start in edutainment by falling in love with college policy debate, being a policy debater, just thinking about the policymaking process and how black people is impacted historically, politically, socially, economically. You see from talking to me, there's going to be a few things I know how to repeat and comprehend, how to connect the dots on. So really being able to try to education is elevation, being able to expose our people to a lot of the information that I feel like I should have been got access to, but I didn't get access to until 19, 20. 21. So now it's about recognizing I had to do a SAT, ACT, and do all this stuff to get into the college. And then that's how I was able to get what they was gatekeeping from me. Now, how I learn and how I really love to do is give access to other people. And that's why I really stumbled across edutainment and seeing that I had a knack and a passion for just, teaching.
That you do. Consciously, thank you so much for being here. Let everyone know where they can follow you and keep up with some of your videos.
Yeah, theconsciously.com is my website. I do workshops, facilitations. I have an online class right now about social media and social issues. I also got another class coming out, The Consciously, on all social media platforms. My motto is education is elevation, research over me search. And I promise when you tap in with me, it's going to be some real, raw, organic things.
We love that. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Black Report. It's been very, very, very enlightening.